language in the Constitution on the natural resources section that said that the natural resources belong to the state, including land and waters, for the maximum benefit of the people. And that didn't seem like too big a deal at the time. It wasn't very controversial, but it became fairly important later on. In 1959, Alaska got control of many of its resources when it became a state. And I will say that in 1959, Strom Thurmond, the U.S. Senator, said Alaska is too poor, could never finance its government. It's going to be a burden on the federal government. But in 1962, oil deposits discovered in Prudhoe Bay, northern Alaska. And in 1969, the state sold land, which turns out not to have a lot of oil on it, but it was nearby to Prudhoe Bay, and that land generated, the leases on that land generated $900 million. There was only 301,000 people living in Alaska at that time, so it was, in today's money, equivalent to $16,900 per capita. Now, can you imagine what would happen in Ontario if the province of Ontario got a windfall from some great U.S. investor and said, I'll pay Ontario $230 billion if you'll give me all your gold in the next 30 years. That would be the equivalent of $16,900 for everybody in Ontario. How those papers would be used. But that didn't prevent the politicians from, I think everybody who was supporting it, including myself, from saying, hey, whatever future legislature, future generations want to use it for. Politicians dangle everything from dams to daycare centers and cafeterias to reserves and hospitals that could flow from the permanent. In 1979, oil prices soared. With that rising oil prices, Alaska's revenue soared. And Alaska used that money not only to pay this permit fund, but mostly to eliminate all taxes and spending. In 1980, Alaska became the only state with no income tax and no sales tax. Governor Hammond really thought it was a bad idea. I think it's justifiably called the father of the permanent fund. He thought it was a terrible idea to get rid of the income tax, and he was ready to veto it, but his advisors correctly told him that if you veto that, the legislature is going to override the veto in Alaska. His signature. By 1981, Alaska per capita spending had become by far the highest in the nation, $26,549 in real 2017 dollars. Huge amount of resources going into the economy, into public works and social programs through the state government. In 1982, the permanent fund dividend was created, and it was basically the creature of Governor Hammond in particular, and he had been the mayor of what you would call a county, what we call boroughs in Alaska, out in Bristol Bay, which is a huge has a huge salmon resource, and he wanted to create in the Bristol Bay borough a public corporation that would tax the salmon that goes out of Bristol Bay and would provide benefits to the people who live in Bristol Bay through this public corporation. That really never flew, but he kept that idea that natural resources really belong to the people in the area, and that Alaska's development, going back to the Kennecott copper developments and gold, were developed mostly by large corporations outside the state, and there's a strong feeling in Alaska to a certain extent remains today, that that Alaska and Alaskans have been exploited by these corporate interests. So the permanent fund was created in 1982. They started it with a $1,000 sort of nominal payment, and then tied payments thereafter to the earnings of the fund in a formula that's a little difficult to understand, 5-year averaging formula, and it was based on realized income instead of actual income. But this red line shows what the permanent fund dividend is under that formula. And we'll come back to this chart later on. But as you can see, as the fund rose in value, the dividend rose in value too. And the fund rose in value, of course, for two reasons. One is that it had earnings that were put back into the fund. They called them inflation proofing. And the other was that oil payments continued to flow into the fund. Some of the ups and downs were caused by years of low earnings caused by failures or poor investment returns in 2000, 2001, and again in 2008, 2007. So what did Alaska do with the rest of its oil revenue? Well, this spaghetti chart here shows the flow of cumulative state revenues, oil revenues, from 1977 through 2010. If you look at the top there, it says oil revenue, 103.5 billion. Of that, that was the total cumulative oil revenue received by Alaska in nominal dollars in those years. And if you look at that little offtake there to the right, that's 11.8. Only 11.8, hardly a little more than 10% of the oil revenue went into the permanent fund. Most of the oil revenue went into the state budget. And a small amount of it went into what I would call savings accounts other than the permanent fund that were designed for rainy day funds. Also, you could call them rainy day funds. The permanent fund had earnings. Those earnings went into the earnings reserve. Some of them cycled back on the far right into the permanent fund principal, and a small amount, actually only about 40–50% of the earnings actually were paid out as dividends to Alaskans. Everything was going just fine, although there were a lot of naysayers, people who said that Alaska is setting itself up for a disaster because it's eliminated all these taxes and become completely dependent on oil revenue to support its government. But those Sandra-like warnings, which were first issued, I'd say, in 1977, it just never seemed to come true. Oil revenue rose, oil production rose, and then it started to decline. But as it declined, the declines were offset by really substantial increases in oil prices, which, when the crude base started to flow in 1977, was about $5 or $6 a barrel. By 2000, well, I'll show you later what the revenue was. It had gone from about $5 or $6 to well over $100 a barrel. So that disguised the decline in oil production and made it very hard to persist in the naysaying that some economists and fiscal experts were providing. This is Alaska's petroleum revenue in fiscal years going from 2011 to 2017. Dropped from almost $9 billion to just a little over $1 billion. So Alaska's revenue dropped to an eighth of what it was. And that created a lot of angst in the state, naturally. And the result was that we had to start taking money out of our savings accounts, the rainy day funds. In 2015, Alaska state government was scrambling to pay its bills and taking more and more money out of its rainy day accounts, and those accounts are just about nearing exhaustion. Probably will be exhausted this year or next. The state, it's like Willie Sutton said, when you're needing money, you go to a place that the money is, and in Alaska, the money is in the permanent fund. So the state government looked to the permanent fund for something. Did it look for income taxes? There were many who tried to get to reestablish the normal kind of taxation that other states have. They failed. The political will was not there to do that. So Governor Walker in 2016 vetoed part of the appropriation for the permanent fund dividend, and as a consequence, they've been shaving money off of the dividend ever since. The red line, or the blue line, is the dividend that would have been paid, would have been up to $2,600, almost $3,000 this year. But the red line shows what was actually paid. Now that money didn't go into the state budget, it just got sequestered because they couldn't reach a consensus on biting the bullet to get into the permanent fund, which was very popular with the people, and they couldn't get any consensus on raising revenue or much revenue from any other sources. So what are the lessons of 40 years from the Alaska Permanent Fund? I think the first lesson is that Alaska Permanent Fund was an improbable success. If you read Mike Howard and Carl Wiederquist's book, the Alaska Model, you'll see in there how fortuitous it was that the permanent fund was actually created. The dividend was a great success. Alaskans, if polled about it, even today, widely support the permanent fund dividend. They think it's a good idea. And the third, and probably the most important one, is success of this nature is not permanent. And if Alaska is a model of anything, it's a model that you can't just rest on your laurels. Where does Alaska go from here? Well, the ideal solution, in my view, would be to send all permanent fund income to households, not just about half of it, and to finance state government with taxes, just like the other 49 states and provinces of Canada finance most of their government. I think households make much better decisions about how money should be allocated, the resources should be allocated than governments do, and households make the decision of how much of their household income they want to pay in taxes and whether it's worth what they're getting from the government. That's the connection that we've lost in Alaska. It's called the Alaska disconnect. Much more likely, however, is that there will be increased use of the permanent fund to finance the state budget, that there will be a shrinking citizens dividend, and I hold that there will be a shrinking permanent fund because we've broken the link now between, or it looks like we're going to continue breaking the link, or not reestablish the link between the management of the fund and the dividend that goes to people. So many of us in Alaska are not giving up. Many Alaskans are working for better solutions. Please wish us luck. We will need it. Thank you.